Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to the Almatum Audible podcast. This is episode 191, and I'm your host, Jared Kalmus, joined today, as always, by my co-host, Adrian Bermudez. And we're recording a little bit earlier in the day than we usually do to get ready for a big Cowboys kickoff.
That's right. That's right. Cowboys are on Monday night. And so had to have Jared move some scheduling around to make some time for me to sit down and watch it and not miss a beat. So I really appreciate that, sir. Yes, we got a divisional matchup. Very exciting.
Yeah, of course. So speaking of divisional matchup, we will be previewing a conference opponent for the first time this season.
Very
later
exciting.
In this podcast.
Very exciting. Yes.
But before we do that, we have plenty to discuss about the Roadrunners, I guess you could say lackluster showing to wrap up out of conference play against Texas Southern this week in the Alamodome. UTSA did get out of there with a 52-24 win, but I don't think the score is very indicative of how the game actually played out on the field.
Right. And I think any UTSA fan watching that would agree with you. I think every UTSA player and coach would probably agree with you as well. Hell, I think Traylor opened up his press conference today with just saying, we're disappointed. And I think you nailed it, bro, in the first sentence of your film review breakdown. Last week, it was so weird to be encouraged with a 41-20 loss. And this week, it feels very weird to be frustrated with a 52-24 win. And that's absolutely been the dynamic polarity of the last 2 weeks of Roadrunner fandom. It was mentally and physically didn't really feel like UTSA was in this game until that fourth quarter run sort of took over. And look, we're talking about being frustrated with a team that set 3 offensive records in this game. Frank Harris set the record for the most touchdowns all time from a UTSA quarterback, beating Dalton Sturm. He also broke the record for single game yardage, passing yardage from a quarterback. And then JT Clark broke the single game receiving yardage record. And so we had all these fantastic accomplishments, yet, Jared, it was not a great showing from UTSA.
No, it wasn't. I think there was a lot that went wrong. I think both mentally and physically. The thing that bothers me the most is Texas Southern was by far the most physical team on the field.
That's right.
I don't even think it was close.
Way more effort, and way more power. And you saw it on several occasions. Some UTSA players getting knocked down, getting pancaked, getting truck sticked by TSU guys with half of the frame and half of the stature that they've got, with just more intensity, more power, and more effort. I mean, TSU came into the Alamodome wanting to win that game more than UTSA did. Yeah,
they did. And, part of me was a little bit surprised at how much size the Tigers had. They had a lot more Power 5 transfers than I realized. I didn't go through the full roster in my game preview, and I didn't realize how many guys they had that transferred in from Power 5 schools.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that size and speed also was pretty evident on the field. I think Texas Southern was probably a lot better than a lot of people were going to give them credit for heading into that one, but there's still no excuse. I mean, UTSA is a conference champion at the G5 level. Like, they should be able to absolutely handle business against a team from the SWAC. And, this game should have been out of hand before halftime. And it's easy to see how that could have happened, without a couple of turnovers, without some penalties, without some really bad gap assignment, which I kind of want to do a whole segment on. It was so bad. But it just didn't feel like UTSA came in with a really strong game plan, especially on the defensive side of the ball. It's just a lot went wrong for UTSA, but they managed to avoid the upset. But I think it's easy to look at a game like that and realize how Power 5 teams get upset all the time. And I think when we get into our game preview with Middle Tennessee, you can kind of see some parallels, right, of Middle Tennessee and Miami game to this UTSA Texas Southern game, where UTSA didn't get upset, but it's pretty easy to imagine a scenario where they could have, right? Just because UTSA didn't really come in prepared. They didn't take that team very seriously, and they didn't give it their best effort, and they really did not represent the brand, as Coach Traylor always says.
They did not. And TSU came out, punched us in the mouth. I mean, they were strong, they were prepared, and they wanted to win that game. The effort was night and day difference between those two teams. And we talk about all of those phenomenal records being broken and being set, but quite honestly, Jared, that should never happen in this game. That should have never happened against the TSU, because your starting skill position players should not have been in the game long enough to set program records. It doesn't make any sense, right?
Perfect storm to set program records when you're playing against a team that has so much less talent than you, but the game continues to be close. So you got to keep the dogs out there. You got to keep throwing downfield. So it makes sense that those school records were broken, but I completely agree with you. It's like a bad sign that
it is.
Some of these records are broken in this game.
It is. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason that Frank Harris should have been playing all the way up until the final offensive drive of the game whenever Eddie Lee comes in. And so you really got a whole 4 quarters out of all of your starters when you only anticipated them playing maybe the first half, maybe 2.5 quarters. These guys had to run the entire freaking game. And so,
and let's be clear. I think UTSA really needed that physical break of being able to sub out all those guys at halftime.
And
give that second string, third string some real run. I think that could really hurt UTSA down the stretch because they're still several weeks away from the bye week. And I think they really, really needed a break last week, and they didn't give themselves one. They have no one to blame but themselves. And I think that's really unfortunate for UTSA. I think if they look sluggish against Middle Tennessee, if they get beat against Middle Tennessee, I think you kind of draw that back to the previous week and the performance against Texas Southern and the inability to rest more players could have an impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our inability to show up in that game absolutely could weather on us. And yeah, I don't want to say it's a pitiful performance, but mentally, physically, we were not in that game. Spiritually, we're not in that game. And I'll be honest, dude, up until that 4th quarter and we started going on the runs, never did it feel like UTSA was in control of that ball game. Not at any point. It's kind of like you were waiting for the next thing to go wrong.
That's a good way to put it. Right.
Yeah. And, you talk about poor execution. Look, this team hadn't lost any fumbles all year long. We lost 2 fumbles to TSU on Saturday. The tackling continues to be an enormous issue. It was an issue last week against Bijan Robinson, sure, but now
to me it's different. It's different to me.
No, it is. That's what I'm saying. It's totally different for it to be an issue against Texas, against Bijan Robinson. We can understand you not being able to bring down a top 1% elite running back. There's absolutely no excuse to not be able to tackle TSU players, FCS guys.
Here's the thing. Texas was breaking tackles. They were running through Roadrunners. Texas Southern was just running around them. UTSA guys were just diving at their feet.
It
was a really sad showing. Yeah, it was really weak stuff, man. No physicality. I think in my film breakdown, I was like, where are the headhunters at on this defense in this game? Nobody. Clifford Chapman had one big hit to make up for him getting truck sticked by the TSU running back. Outside of that, there were not a whole lot of pad popping that happened. Caden Holt had one on the last play of the game. He came in and he laid a big hit. But outside of that, it was a lot of guys arm tackling, diving at players' feet, just really weak stuff, and not the kind of performance on defense that feels assertive and makes the offense kind of second guess taking that pop. You know what I mean?
Yes. And you look at how the defense and Chapman's big hit was fueled and inspired because he got truck stick. Like you make that point, where were the headhunters at? Yeah, no one came into this game really blood hungry, right? No one was in there just ready to they were expecting a week off, and I think they knew that they could do, or they didn't know, they thought that they could do a little bit of half speed and get away with a little bit of R&R, and it did not work out that way. And they got a real wake-up call pretty early on in that game. And this isn't the first time we've seen this happen. I think you made the comment that UTSA's depth solely got us past Army in that week 2 game. But everything else UTSA did was just flat out wrong and built to lose that game. And there was a point, I mean, you could even argue, and maybe not depth, UTSA's talent single-handedly got them past TSU in that 4th quarter. But other than that, man, I mean, we were losing every phase of this game. They had enormous kickoff returns. They were doing better on offense. They were out hustling us on defense. So we were losing every single phase.
They ran the ball better.
They ran the ball way better. These holes that TSU's offensive line were forcing on us, you could have drove an F-350 through. I mean, they were enormous. I was shocked at the physicality and the push that TSU's offensive line was getting on our defense. That was appalling.
If Frank Harris didn't play last week, I don't know UTSA beats Texas Southern.
The Eddie Lee fans are going to have something to say about that. But I think you might be right.
I mean, yeah, we haven't seen Eddie Lee play a full game, right? He looked great. Obviously, his series, he came in, went 3 for 3, threw a touchdown pass. He looked awesome. But it's completely different, to take on the burden of leading a full team against a full game and getting all the game prep attention and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and I think the biggest thing to me from this game is really the defense and just how alarming this unit is. The secondary has been exposed through games already. Through the Army game this year, they were exposed. TSU was throwing the ball in the same way that Army was throwing the ball on us. And then you had the running side, which Texas did against us really, really well. Army not so much, but TSU was able to do both, pass the ball and run the ball extremely well against this UTSA defense. I mean, it just seemed to not execute anywhere. That is what I am most alarmed about.
Yeah, let's get into the run issues. So I was really perplexed the first play of the game. UTSA showed a 4-man tackle box against Texas Southern. They had 2 inside linebackers on the field, but Trevor Harmon was way out wide. He was lined up head to head over a slot receiver, I guess in man coverage. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think the first time we've seen that from UTSA this year. And if you're doing that against Western Kentucky or Middle Tennessee, I guess that makes sense because they don't have too much of a run game. But against Texas Southern, I was so confused because Texas Southern does not have a deep passing game at all. Andrew Body just doesn't really have the arm strength. And we saw that, in the game, they would have receivers open down the field. He couldn't get the ball to him. So I did not understand why UTSA was playing with 2 and even sometimes 3 high safeties and not bringing that extra linebacker down into the box. It was really weird and it looked terrible. It's just UTSA doesn't have the personnel, I don't think, to run that kind of look. And Texas Southern ate it up. It's easy to run into a 4-man tackle box. You got more blockers than there are defenders there, right? And you can double team a guy and still have numbers, right? So that was really weird. Looking back, I still don't understand it. The only thing I can think of that sort of makes sense to me is they were installing that and using that game as a scrimmage to prepare for the defense they want to run against Middle Tennessee. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Interesting. Just trying to get guys used to that formation, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't shake up, it doesn't make any sense to try to do that, especially whenever it's not working. And I don't know, it feels like against Texas and Army too, we weren't really stacking the box and bringing a lot of blitzes and really getting nasty up front, the way that you expect this UTSA defense to be. Just that upfront nastiness doesn't really seem to be there this year. Mm-hmm. I know we've had some success pressuring the quarterback, but those big backfield impact plays where we're making the sacks, we're bringing them down behind the line of scrimmage, those have been missing through this first 4 weeks.
I think the big thing is they're not finishing those plays. I still think that they're getting pressure, like you said, they're making quarterbacks kind of get off balance, rush their throw a little bit. The pick that Body threw, I mean, he had to rush that because there were 2 or 3 guys that are about to slam him into the ground. But what you saw a lot more of is I think Jamori Robinson has done this a lot this year. We've seen Trey Moore do it a lot this year where they beat their guy in their pass rush and sometimes they even get into the backfield unblocked, but then they don't make good solid contact with the quarterback. Right. And they can't bring them down. So they'll run past the quarterback and try to arm tackle around the side or, they'll shoulder check them or something like that.
It goes back to the tackling issue, right?
It goes back to tackling issue. Yes. Maybe it goes to the fact that they don't tackle in practice. That's a choice.
Sure.
That they've made to protect the health. I think right now you look at the health of the team, they don't have a choice, right? Is the tough part. You can't be too physical in practice when you've got 21 guys, right, that were missing in the past couple of weeks.
Right.
But I think that's the big thing for me. I mean, we've seen this from the UTSA defense before. I think the 2020 defense had the same issue a lot where Clarence Hicks was getting in the backfield all the time, but he wasn't getting a lot of sacks. Right. And there is one play that really stuck with me in the Texas Southern game where I can't remember who it was that got into the backfield. UTSA brought the blitz. They had 3 or 4 different opportunities to sack and/or just get a good hit on Andrew Body. and they never made good contact with him. They just kind of, touched him up a little bit, gave him a little love tap or whatever, but it wasn't enough to really affect the play. And so what could have been a sack or an incompletion or an interception, a turnover,
Right.
I don't know. He was able to just like kind of work around the pocket, and then he eventually threw the ball away, but it stopped the clock, right?
Right.
And that kind of kept the drive going for the Tigers. If they would have gotten the sack, the drive would have been over, and I think it would have gone into halftime. So it kind of gave them 3 points because UTSA couldn't finish that play.
And there's also like this signal that it sends to the quarterback. He gets a couple of impact tackles really, really delivered to him. I mean, that confidence level goes down.
Yeah.
Andrew Body stops throwing the ball and playing so well. If he gets knocked the hell down a couple of times in the backfield, I mean, it's just a natural thing. You send that warning shot and you sort of let them know, hey, you can't get away with that over here. But when you can't get home and finish that, it certainly grows his confidence. Even just throwing the ball away, not making complete, the fact that he didn't take the sack, you feel good as a quarterback being able to escape and get out of there, unscathed and go to the next.
It goes
down.
for the offensive line too, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're the guy that led the defensive lineman through, the linebacker through and got the sack, or if you're another offensive lineman and you're like, hey, I'm doing my job, why can't this left guard next to me pick up a blitz, right? Kind of get that back and forth. We've seen UTSA do this a couple times.
Guys get
a little snippy with each other, right? It's only natural. But I think like the mental toll of finishing a play like that is huge, as opposed to like, oh, I messed up, but it didn't hurt the team that bad.
That's
they were
right.
Able to throw the ball away.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
And then how about for the other side? How about for the defender who just can't get home, and how frustrating it is.
Yeah, sometimes it's like
over and over again not get home. Yep. Like it just gets so annoying, and then they think, what's wrong? What's off? Why can't I finish? And right. And so it starts to get a cumulative effect there. But I think it goes both ways for that whole momentum. And look, man, momentum's been huge back and forth. I think UT tying the game before halftime was a big momentum thing. Mm-hmm. This halftime score was 17-21. And I was sitting there like freaking the hell out. We're about to lose to TSU, man. Are you kidding me? So I mean, the momentum thing is absolutely massive, a part of it. And I think momentum has been a big reason why we've seen the UTSA team look the way that they have. They've been sort of carrying the same bad momentum, bad energy ever since the Houston loss, man, and a lackluster performance against Army. Look, the only game that this team has felt good coming out of was the loss to Texas. That is the only game where the interviews and the press conferences throughout the week were like positive and high energy and uplifting. Look, after Houston, after Army, and after Texas Southern, there's been a very low energy, a very disappointed feel from trailers quotes and from interviews. I mean, and you can just feel it. They don't feel up and energized and excited. They're pissed off and down at themselves right now. And so you've seen this momentum snowball, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you say that, because I think Coach Traylor said last week was their best week of practice for the year. They sure didn't play like it, right? That was kind of interesting. Very
interesting. You're absolutely right. They were just feeling good about themselves for going up 17-7 against Texas in the first quarter.
Let's hope Middle Tennessee is doing the same thing on a short week.
Yeah, let's hope.
That's my big hope. That's my big hope. I mean, okay, like I definitely agree with you on all that, but the way that I see it right now is, look, at the end of conference play, we came out with the exact record that we realistically hoped UTSA would have.
Right.
The injuries have been worse than you would hope for, but they're not cataclysmic, right? If you can get one of the offensive tackles back in the next 2 weeks, I think Mekhi Hart is probably the closest one to coming back. If you can get one of those guys back in the next 2 weeks, overall, it's pretty good. There's still a lot of guys banged up, a lot of guys out, a lot of guys borderline 50-50 and all that stuff, but it's football. I mean, every team has that right now.
And it's not any of your skill positions besides Traylon. It's not any of your skill position guys, right? So you guys, I think
Traylon's probably back this week too.
I think he's probably back this week too. We saw him walking around out there on the sideline. He had his jersey on. He wasn't tied up or anything, but he looked fine. Yeah. And also, man, and I almost forgot to mention, but I do feel like tackling issues is an issue that has plagued this team going back to the Wilson era. It's something that has never really been a consistency, good form tackling for UTSA. Never. We always have like this throw your body, or stick your arm out, dive at the leg, but just good textbook tackling. Man, I haven't seen it in a really long time consistently from the majority of this team's defense.
When I started doing my game prep for Middle Tennessee, that was the thing that stood out to me the most about the team is how much better they are at tackling compared to UTSA.
They were tackling some hurricanes.
If UTSA could tackle as well as Middle Tennessee does, this defense would be so much better. This team would be so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all mental. Like UTSA totally has the athletes to get the ankle, deliver the force, right? But it's just all mental and rep and stuff like that. So,
and how about this, Jared? Switching to the offense. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's
all right. We've been back and forth all pod. It's cool.
1 for 8 on third down conversions. 1 for 8. UTSA converted 1 third down against Texas Southern University.
Wow.
Texas Southern converted 9 third downs against UTSA, 9 of their 20.
Well, I did pull it up, and to be fair, they had 20 third down attempts.
Yeah, 9 out of 20 is a hell of a better percentage than 1 out of 8.
Yeah. That's
we were 1 out of 3.
Man.
We were 1 out of 8.
That's so 1 out of 8. That's
appalling.
I feel like I got to go back and look at all 7 failed conversions to see what happened. Now that you mentioned that, I did not realize the stat was that bad. And that's kind of one of the things I've been telling myself is that UTSA has been so good at converting to keep the sticks moving this year.
So far they have been.
Yeah, maybe I have to reconsider that. Do you think they were trying to run the ball more on third down this game?
I saw some that I don't know. I think you see them running the ball, and then also I think just like plays were just like falling apart. I don't know. Not a lot of our third down situations were like the most favorable, but even on the ones that were closer, we couldn't seem to convert on. And I think it's just like and it's going to sound cheesy or whatever, but I really think it's a toughness thing. I just like to see.
Damn, you kind of whisper that like you're afraid to say it. Say it with your chest, boy.
It's a toughness thing, bro. It's a toughness thing. Look, I've talked about this before, I think a week or two ago, when you see us line up on those third and shorts or those goal line packages, and we're still in the shotgun.
Yeah.
And we're still trying to run something fun and tricky and work our way in there. Let's just get big. Let's line up under center. Let's push the guys in front of us back, and let's get the yardage that we need, right? And play tough, big man football. And that wasn't every third down that we had against TSU, right? A lot of them were third with some distance that we needed to cover, but I think the principle still applies. I think you got to get mean and nasty when it's time to move the ball on third downs instead of being cute and tricky and schematic.
Man, it's crazy because UTSA's 3 interior offensive linemen are all over 330 pounds. You would think that getting 2-3 yards on a dive play would be automatic for guys of those size, and it just hasn't been. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the run game. That's kind of the last thing that I really want to do a deep dive on for this game. To me, it's a huge red flag that UTSA had like less than 4 yards per carry or something like that against not only an FCS opponent, but one that should on paper be pretty bad, right? They're not even picked to win the SWAC. I don't even think they're in the top 3 in the SWAC heading into the preseason. I don't know, man. It makes you wonder if these are fixable issues or not. Coach Traylor said that Texas Southern was loading the box, and sure, but it wasn't like they had 8 dudes in there. Like, you would still think that if it was even, or even UTSA was down 1, they should still be able to get 4 or 5 yards most of the time running against, a much smaller team, especially a team that didn't have a whole lot of stature on their defensive line.
Right. That's what I'm saying. There was not a whole lot of stature on the defensive line. And whenever you flip it and you look at Texas Southern being able to run for 4.7 yards per carry, right? 235 rushing yards from Texas Southern, as opposed to UTSA's 112. And yeah, it's super ugly, man. But when you think about Texas Southern's offensive line being able to open up the holes that they were, but UTSA's offensive line not being able to do that, that's appalling. And no reason why we shouldn't be able to open up Texas Southern's defensive line like the freaking, like Moses opening up the river, and you should be able to just go right through that thing, man. I mean, it's it doesn't make any sense for our hogs to not be able to create that push, but they just haven't been. We didn't have any long yard. Brendan Brady didn't even bust a 10-yard run, bro. His longest run was 8 yards.
I feel like you might have had one get called back.
Yes, on a hold. Yeah, I did.
Oh, that was Vinley's hold.
Yeah, that was Vinley's hold.
Power slam the guy to the ground.
Sumo,
you can't do that. Yeah, that's illegal.
Mm-hmm.
It looks cool, but it's illegal.
Yeah. After no holding penalties last week, he had to have that one. But no, dude, it's appalling because the run game has not been turned on, and I get not being able to make it happen against a Houston and against a Texas, but man, no reason why it shouldn't have been popping last week, dude.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I hope Treylon's back this week. I think they really need some more speed back there, change of pace. Brendan's ran really well this year, I think. I mean, he's missed some cutbacks, he's missed some holes and stuff like that, but I think overall he's run well. But I think the defense has kind of keyed in on him because he's in Treylon's been hurt. He's been the only running back that's really getting consistent carries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think Treylon's speed is going to be a nice change of pace for the offense, and hopefully it gets the defense kind of having to read things a little bit more, getting their eyes adjusted to the change in speed, stuff like that. And that allows Brady, I think, to show his strength and his, his ability to decisively cut a hole. Helps us stand out a little bit better, I think. Hopefully.
Right. Setting up that mismatch against the defense with having another back. Right. And I think that's hurt a little bit. I really think ultimately though, it comes down to the offensive line play. Right. And maybe schematically too, right? I mean, are our rush plays, could they be designed better to maybe give Brendan Brady or the offensive line to that regard more of an opportunity?
Here's the thing. I think a lot of times we see a run play kind of go nowhere and you're like, damn, we should be able to run the ball better. But the play call was actually a run pass option.
Yes.
So, Frank gets the ball and he's kind of holding on to it for a little bit. He's reading that safety, he's reading that linebacker. And I think that those plays are a little bit slow developing sometimes. And maybe the offensive line just doesn't do well in those scenarios because they're pretty big hulking guys. Even I guess Frankie's the only one that's not well over 300 pounds. Right. So maybe those guys just don't have the quickness or what, to blow that hole open. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a great point. I don't know if I have the answer for that, but it's something to consider. Maybe
that extra half a second just gives the defensive line enough time to get back there. Right.
Yeah. And I'll say too, when they run a pull for the guards or the tackles, they are so slow in their pulls. I feel like those plays are doomed. Usually you see the defense in the backfield, even from the backside, before those guys can get across to the other side of the tackle box. And the running backs have to slow down to wait for the block to develop. So I feel like those plays might need to get scrapped because they're not going anywhere. If you have Oscar or Gavin Sharp or Dan Dishman pulling or doing a split zone kind of block, those seem to do well because those guys are quicker. But I question the quickness of the offensive line to pull off a lot of those kind of power runs and traps and stuff like that. I don't feel like they're getting to their spots quick enough for him to be successful. Yeah. You may have a point there, but the running game is jarring. The tackling issue is jarring. These are huge red flags for this UTSA team. And look, Conference USA is going to get the better of us if we're not able to swiftly correct the tackling issue. The running issue we can afford to get away with because Frank Harris is so damn dynamic, but the tackling issue there will be no getting away with that. I think eventually the passing game keeps doing what it's doing and the defenses are going to empty up the tackle box, you would think, or you would hope. Hasn't happened yet, but I don't know. You got to feel like you're going to see some live boxes down the stretch if guys keep going for 200 yards the passing game. But I don't know. But I think tackling and run game, they both come down to physicality. Even with the guys being slow on the offensive line and, Treylon being hurt, all you got is Brendan really that you can really count on. If everyone is just really physical and really aggressive and really violent, they should be picking up yards. And you kind of can beat the defense in a submission if you really hit them in the mouth. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yep. So
we did things successful, but I mean, one thing that has gotten or that improved throughout the course of that game, and as actually our best showing so far on the season, was penalties. Yep. And albeit we still haven't been perfect, but we had 5 penalties through the first half, and it looked like UTSA
70 yards too.
Yeah, 70 yards, which is more than our total output like the 2 weeks prior. But it looked like we were on pace for another 10 penalty game. Well, it turned out those 5 penalties in the first half would be our last. We did not commit any second half penalties. We committed 0 pre-snap penalties, which is a little bit better.
Yep.
But the fact of the matter is there's still a slight issue there, and maybe not just penalties in general, but when we talk about the tackling issue, how penalties have been throughout the last 4 weeks, the effort and the energy that the team comes out with. Does UTSA have a discipline problem?
A little bit. I think or is
it just an inexperienced problem? Is it just a youth problem?
I think it's both. Right. I mean, I think UTSA plays a lot of guys. They're playing young guys. You mix that in with the penalty situation, I think they kind of accumulate on top of each other. So I think you're going to see it continue to decrease throughout the length of the season. But right now, I think that's a fair statement to make. It was good to see that second half get cleaned up for sure.
I think they've definitely cleaned up. And so we've seen in like mid game sharpening up from the team. We haven't seen them come out just locked in and ready. Well, I guess Texas and U of H, sure. But I think there was an issue like with just the way that the timeline unfolded for this team, because you got to have hardship, you got to have adversity before you have success. Well, this team kind of happened the other way around. You didn't really have much adversity or hardship at all getting that 2021 championship, besides in-game on the field drama going back and forth with WKU and UAB. But you didn't have real adversity to deal with. I guess maybe Traylor getting poached to Tech for a couple of days, but real difficulty for the team to deal with. And now we're having those hardships, we're having that adversity, and I just don't think we've learned how to deal with that yet, right? And so ultimately for the program, this is great, especially during Jeff Traylor's tenure, because they need this to grow. It's just the timing of it's really weird, because they've only known success. They haven't had to deal with this, and now they are. So I think just learning how to manage it is a little bit different when it happens in that order.
And so that's a tough schedule too. I mean, I just looked at the strength of schedule rankings earlier today, and UTSA was like 45, 43 or something like that. So, super tough for sure. But I would rather have the problems that this team has right now than like they're untested. You know what I mean? Like they've gone in and gone mano a mano against some really good teams and have not looked at a place. You know what I mean?
And that's with committing the issues, right? It's not like they've had these issues.
That's with mental errors. That's with a lot of injuries, right? That's with young guys getting a lot of snaps. So I think it's good. I think it's been an iron sharper iron kind of situation for UTSA. Right. And obviously you would like to see the team healthier overall, but I think going into conference play, UTSA is positioned pretty well, right?
Right.
If they had 2 offensive tackles back, I think they'd be in great position. Right. But what they have to work with right now, you got to be pretty happy with it.
Yep. And on that point, we're still going to be without any of those offensive tackles coming into Middle Tennessee. I think Jeff Traylor's quote when he asked about the offensive line injuries, he said, it's not looking good. And that's about all he said. So it's rough, man.
I read the quote and I was like, I wonder if he's bluffing and Mekhi Hart's going to come out there and just, start sitting boys down. But
if you watch it in real time, it's such a morbid, the way he delivers it. It's like,
after reviewing the video, after watching the film.
Next question. So. He's like, next question. Yeah. But let's get. Let's get.
Before we move on, Ben Rios, DeAndre Marshall came in that fourth quarter. They look good, brother.
I was going to get into the positives before we moved on. Let's get into the good stuff. We've been kind of raking on disappointing 52-24
Let me just say, if you're listening to this podcast and they're like, wow, Jared and Adrian are jerks, man. They're so negative. The only reason we're talking like this is because UTSA is a championship team. And we know that they are capable of repeating and going and winning a bowl game. And all that great stuff, right? So we're hard on the team because it's so frustrating to see how good they can be, right? If they clean it up, put everything together, they're going to have, hopefully it's this week, but they're going to have a performance in these next couple of weeks where everything clicks at the same
Comes
time.
together,
It's like, oh man, this team is really freaking good, right?
That's right.
That performance is coming. UTSA hasn't played a complete game yet. I think Houston's the closest they got, but even that was not complete, right? So it's coming.
Correct. That's a great point. And to piggyback that, I guarantee we've got the same sentiment as the locker room does and as the coaching staff does. They're disappointed. Totally. They're upset. So we keep it real, and it is what it is, but they know there's room for improvement and it's got to improve. But I like that you say that because we were firing on all cylinders sort of all year last year. And there was a point where like, I think in the middle of October, late October, we're like, did we peak too early? Are we going to win? And then like, especially after losing to UNT, it was like, no, right? And it happens in baseball a lot, right? You see that team that's playing really, really good in June. They fall off in September and August, right? Going into postseason. So maybe, Jared, maybe this team is going to peak right there in that November stride into
Honestly,
October.
Adrian, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I like that.
I've seen Western Kentucky fans like taking a victory lap on Twitter that like, there was no drop off after losing Kitley and Zappy. And like, you look at who they played, it's like literally 3 of the worst programs in the whole country. So I would much rather be in the position where UTSA is, where there's 500 record, they're 2-2. They found some new playmakers. Yeah, they got some injuries, but they're battle tested. They're hardened. They're ready for Conference USA play. And I think they're going to do great down the stretch. Do I think they're going to win out right now? No, probably not. But I think they're still in great position to get into that championship game. And then, it's anyone's ball game at that point.
Absolutely. And we go in and look at the highlights from the TSU game. We've mentioned the all-time record setting, but what we haven't mentioned is shout out to my boy Brett Winnigan, the very first kickoff return touchdown in UTSA history. Colorado transfer Chris Carpenter takes his first touch as a Roadrunner to the house. Electric, and dons the flying wings behind him as he crosses the goal line. I mean, a masterpiece, really a masterpiece.
That was a beautiful thing. I mean, Chris likely had no idea, but him doing the little sprinter's finish is like an homage to Brett Winnigan, because Brett did that when he returned that kick against Arizona that got called back. So that was an awesome moment.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't that Brett Winnigan's first touch as a Roadrunner?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh man, I don't know why, but I remember thinking, I want to say I think it was because it was the first game of the season.
I don't know. That's a great question. We could go back and look, I guess.
Or you know what? Sure. Did that kickoff return happen against? Oh, you know what? Maybe it was the second game of the season. It was after the U of H win. Maybe it wasn't his first touch. But anyways, unbelievable sequence there, man. That was awesome.
I think it's safe to say that UTSA has found their return specialist for like the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's a good take, right? That's a strong take.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good take. And
UTSA hasn't had that game-changing return guy since Winnigan was there.
Traylor also told the coolest story about him and Chris Carpenter's relationship, and he knows his mom, right? And they've kind of always known Chris. And the second he got to Colorado, he kind of knew he should have stayed in Texas. And he called Coach in the middle of the night one night, and Coach had to stop what he was doing to make sure he took the call. It was a really, really cool, special story. But it seems like he's where he wants to be, back home in Texas, playing for a coach that he knows and loves. And man, I mean, what a debut that sequence was. What a debut. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing a hell of a lot more from Chris Carpenter.
I would also say it's a reminder of how much talent's on the roster that we don't see every Saturday.
Right. Because otherwise he would be playing wide receiver, wouldn't he?
Yeah. I mean, if UTSA didn't have the big three, Chris Carpenter would probably be a starter.
100%.
There's a lot of guys on the roster that have like insane talent like that just don't get a ton of playing time because UTSA has so many like super talented players that are ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also say on that kick return, there were some incredibly good blocks. There was one that first started like kind of the return alley that opened up the hole. And I couldn't tell if it was Ja'Cory Hyder or Cameron Cooper. It was one of those two guys. They like had a pancake right there on the gunner. And that first opened up the hole for Chris to take off. And then, of course, everyone saw Zay Frazier just pancake, flatten the kicker, send that boy to outer space.
Bootlegs meme video. Dude, yes, man. It was outer space for real. And Chris Carpenter did a fantastic job of following those blockers, knowing where his vision was incredible. His speed was awesome. His vision was just as incredible on that, because the windows he had to hit those were pretty tight, and he just saw them, didn't think twice. A lot of times you see these special teams guy double think and triple think that option, and they'll start making a cut, and then they'll go back, or they'll recut and they'll cut out again when they should just commit. They don't commit. Man. Ooh, Chris Carpenter commits, man. Yeah.
Now that you say it, I just realized how often Josh does it on his punt returns. He does it a lot.
He did it last week where he did like a double where he hit the corner and he was like, no, let me go further wide. And it resulted in him not getting as many yards if he just would have committed to the first cut. Yes. And Josh, man, had that nasty fumble, comes right back the following drive after the defense forces the 3 and out with a 3-play sequence, back-to-back wide open catches or 2-play sequence, back-to-back wide open catches for the touchdown right after the fumble, right? Mm-hmm. So excellent work from Cephas to kind of recover there. He had a hell of a game. He's having a hell of a season, just period. Mm-hmm. And that whole moment, man, that is what led to, I think, the most monumental swing of all time in that game, because it was 27-17 when Cephas fumbles that ball. TSU recovers it, and it's like, holy shit. Like, it was so scary. The defense gets that 3 and out. We go down, score a touchdown, and now it's 34-17 instead of 27-24. Holy cow. Phew. Is what I was doing right there. I was wiping the sweat from my forehead, man. And then how about that Will Stein thing of beauty with 5 offensive linemen downfield?
That is so bittersweet, because that was such an awesome play, but you had to use it against Texas Southern, man. You got to save that for UAB.
Oh, good point, dude. Hate to see it come out right there. Yeah.
You can't put it on film that early, brother.
Man, and the second he caught it, like, I was already like, oh, you saw just a sea of orange jerseys. I was already throwing up a touchdown, man.
Yeah, I think Barry Looney called it against Western Kentucky first game last season, if I remember correctly.
Oh, good call. Good call. I think I remember that. Yeah.
No, I take it back, because Frank Harris caught that one. That was like a running back throwback to Frank, I think.
That was a Brendan Brady flea flicker.
I think so. Something like that, yeah.
Also taken from the Looney special. Yeah. So we had some excellent moments. We were able to kind of get it and hone it in. But, dude, I mean, it was just a little too close for comfort. And despite our great kickoff return for a touchdown, defensively, our kickoff coverage was horrendous. TSU had 3 kickoff returns, like go to the 40-yard line plus past midfield even. That was scary too, man. Where's our lane? Point. Where's our lane assignment? That's another discipline thing, like we were talking about earlier.
Same thing we see on the defensive side of the ball. There were a lot of plays where Andrew Buddy got a first down because UTSA had 2 guys in the A gap and no one was in the B gap. Yeah. So you gave them 2 wide open options to scramble, right? And you can't get to them in time.
So eyes are getting too big, man. You have to stay home. And
there was another play where Brandon Brown was in the B gap. He had the offensive lineman stood up. I think Harmonson was right there in the A gap. He had it covered, but then Brandon Brown did like a pull move to try to come down into the A gap to try to get like a tackle for loss. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of threw his guy into Trevor, blocked Trevor.
Right.
Boom. That's like a 30, 40-yard run, all because Brandon was selfish and tried to make the hero play instead of playing sound gap assignment football. And that's the stuff that gets you killed, man.
That's got to be cleaned up. That's got to be cleaned up. Yeah. And the talent and the depth isn't going to get you past every team in CUSA like it did TSU and against Army.
Yeah.
And then great showing from Eddie Lee, baby. 3 for 3, 49 yards. And all those things were dime. Or 2 of the 3 were dimes, baby. Dropped it in a basket. So that got everyone real excited too.
Ball looked real live out of his hand for sure. I was kind of worried because there were some videos from fall camp where he didn't look the same throwing the ball. And I was kind of concerned, he's coming off surgery or whatever.
Right.
But he's back to the old Eddie Lee. I think he's ready to roll if he has to step in at any time.
Yeah, I wish we would have seen him for more than just one drive, but
I know.
Alas.
Careful what you wish for, though, is kind of what I'm telling myself.
That's right.
All right, man. Well, let's do some Patreon shout outs. We'll do a Cumbia break, and then we'll get into our Middle Tennessee preview. Man, the film breakdown I did was, I think, one of my better ones. It was super long, but if you're not a Patreon subscriber, I think it's worth checking out for $5 a month just for that one alone. If you want to hear me rant about, gap assignment, discipline on defense, and physicality and point of attack and all that stuff, I kind of nerded out on it.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I was maybe overly critical. I don't know. Anyways, shout out to our big money donors, Ben Tovar, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta of the San Antonio Podcast Network, Brandon Padron, and our Board of Trustees members, Digitique, John Otwell, Lino Perez of Los Dos Rowdy's Tailgating, Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding and Meet Me Apparel, who just dropped an awesome Bull Don't Care t-shirt.
Amazing.
All the proceeds from that are going to the Runners Rising NIL Collective. So if you purchase one, it's going to a good cause and supporting UTSA football. And then last but not least, Brandon Grill and the Grill Realty Group. So thank you guys for all that you do and supporting us. We have been putting your investments in the podcast back into very worthy technological advances. So hopefully you'll see more of our content around the internet in the next couple of days, including on TikTok. Adrian's got us on TikTok. I'm gonna have to learn some dances, I guess. It's funny. Adrian texted me the other day. He was like, "Dude, all these high school recruits are liking our videos." So I was like, "What the hell is going on here, man? What are you sending these kids?"
I'll tell you that Alamo Dome Audible recruiting funnel is about to be real on the TikTok, son. No dances will be learned. I don't think there's going to be any hosts visually on any video, maybe some audio content, but we'll just be sticking with sideline footy, bro, and game highlights. But yeah, we're on the TikTok. Check it out at Alamo Dome Audible. If you're a perennial scroller on the TikToks, dude, go check it out because it's going to be fire content. It already is. So
yeah. Well, speaking of fire content and TikTok, I think we need to take a Cumbia break and make a TikTok with a Cumbia video because I've had multiple people ask me for the MP3 file this year. So I always say this. I want to hear the tailgate lots, people. Put it on your tailgate playlist. I want to walk past, hear the Cumbia break, and we'll be lit. If you want the MP3, message us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, it's time to do our first Conference USA preview of the year. The last time it'll be the first Conference USA football game of the year for UTSA as they prepare to move into
wow, Jared. Wow. Very nice.
I want to start becoming cognizant of these things, right? I feel like the exit of Conference USA has been a little understated.
Yeah.
And I get why, because so many teams are also moving into the American from Conference USA that doesn't feel like a complete departure of all the schools, but I think we should start noticing those things as they come around.
No, I think you're right, and what's also understated is just how enormous Conference USA has been for UTSA, and so we should appreciate our final days here and have this farewell party. Yeah, Agreed. Big time. That's another podcast episode.
I guess barring a rematch in the Conference USA Championship, UTSA is guaranteed to exit Conference USA with a winning record over Middle Tennessee. They do have a 3-1 series advantage over the Blue Raiders, but the games have been pretty close. The first year they really beat up on UTSA pretty bad. I don't have the score in front of me. I want to say it was like 45-7. That was back in the Coker years. But past that, the games have been pretty competitive. UTSA has taken 3 in a row now. But they haven't been easy wins, and that includes last year's game as well.
Yeah, well, last year we were in control of that game for a while, and we had them shut out up until they had to change quarterbacks, right?
Had to, yeah, because the starter quit the team at halftime, which is still crazy, man. If that would have happened at a Power 5 blue blood school, that would have been like such a huge meme and story. You know what I mean? Like people have been like photoshopping him on stuff and all that.
I mean, he was quite literally done after that game, huh? Bailey Hockman.
He chunked the deuce, man. He was out. Yeah, shout out to Bailey Hockman. I think he was our NC State transfer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, he was. He was.
Jeff Traylor really stole the bit because I was going to come on this podcast and like joke that Middle Tennessee owes UTSA a favor for like getting Hawkman to quit because Chase Cunningham came in, immediately scored 2 touchdowns, made the game close again, had a great showing throughout the rest of the year, got Middle Tennessee to a bowl game. And now they're they're 3-1 right now this year with Cunningham at quarterback. So really they owe us a favor for maybe speeding up the process to get Cunningham to be the starting quarterback. But Jeff Traylor already made the joke in his media availability, man.
Yeah.
Dang, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, and he went for it. I don't know. I think he was feeling some confidence after Stockstill's media availability, calling out Miami. So Traylor was like, let me get in on some of that. You know?
I didn't know Rick still had the juice like that, to be honest with you.
Yo.
He was feeling himself.
He was feeling himself. So I'm glad that you brought up the serious history because I did not realize the first time I played Middle Tennessee was Coker's last year. But you're absolutely right, Jared. 42-7 Middle Tennessee in 2015. And then 45-25 the following year, Frank Wilson's first year, UTSA. 37-35 the COVID year, Traylor's first season here.
That was a crazy game.
It was a crazy game. We actually got outplayed in nearly every single statistical category, but still won that game by 2 points. Of a nuts game. That's whenever Rick's was that whenever Brent was quarterback? No, that was long after Brent, right? Brent was like 17. That was the second
game. Okay. Yeah, that was the second game of the series where Brent Stockstill got hurt.
That's right. Oh, our boy, broke that arm.
The 2020 game was when Asher O'Hara was their quarterback, and it was just like UTSA would have him bottled up, and he would just like pull a rabbit out of the hat and find a way to get a first down. It was crazy. Shout out to Asher. He transferred to Sacramento State to play with his brother. Yeah, and he's been killing it. They just had a Power 5 they had an FBS upset last week. I can't remember who they beat, but they beat some West Coast school. I always thought he was like really underappreciated, so it's cool to see him continue having success. But, there's been some real memorable games with these two schools.
Was it Stockstill's kid? Was that the one who we broke his arm? Was it Brent? It was Brent's that we broke his arm, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's now their quarterback's coach, which is a controversy in and of itself. Because I guess there were some accusations of some, like, I guess, improper favoritism of nepotism for Brent. I guess he didn't really have much of an interview, and they kind of put some other guys through a sham process, but everyone knew Brent was going to get the job.
Sure.
But, Chase Cunningham's playing great football at quarterback, so, it is what it is.
So Middle Tennessee is such a wild program, man, because they seem like they're super, super good some years, and then they seem to just like bottom of the barrel.
They have no consistency.
Other years. Yeah. And well, it's year over year. Like one year they're competing to win the division, and then the next year they're like bottom of the barrel. You're not even thinking about them on the schedule. You're like, oh, it's a gimme game. And you're never really sure what Middle Tennessee to expect whenever you see them.
I'll add to that and also say that they have a lot of seasons where you watch one or two of their games. You're like, wow, this team sucks. They're so bad. And then at the end of the year, they somehow won 6 games and they're going to the Bahamas Bowl again. You're like, what? How did that happen?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And, Stockstill has been the head coach of that team for 17 years now.
That's crazy, man.
Like half of our lives, maybe some of our listeners' whole lives. Like, it's nuts, man. And this year, who are they? So they get completely rooted in week 1 by James Madison, in James Madison's first game as an FBS school, 44-7. Then they beat Colorado State in Fort Collins, 34-19. They whoop up on Tennessee State, of course, 49-6. And then they go to the U. They go to South Beach,
to Hard Rock,
to Coral Gables, and they beat the University of Miami Hurricanes. Not just they beat the hell out of the University of Miami Hurricanes.
Bro, I watched the whole game.
They had a 99-yard touchdown, Jared. They had a 99-yard touchdown.
The ESPN announcers were laughing at Miami in the third quarter, bro. It was ugly.
Yeah, bro. That 99-yard touchdown put them up by like 3 scores. They were already handily winning the game, and they were popping dudes. They were tackling dudes. I mean, just destroying. I mean, they were out physically. I mean, they physically manhandled Miami, just out physical them the whole entire game. It was dirty, bro. It was dirty, and it was scary as all hell.
This is a bit of a throwback. Do you remember that game oh gosh, it must have been like 2014 or something when Georgia Southern went into the swamp and beat Florida, and Florida had two guys like blocking each other.
Yes.
The Middle Tennessee win over Miami really reminded me of that game that Georgia Southern beat Florida, because the Power Five team was so bad. You're like, is this team good or not? Like, what happened here? Because Miami, buddy, they have some serious issues to work out in that program. I think there was one receiver from Middle Tennessee that had like two catches for like, what was it, like 180 yards or something like that? Like mathematically almost impossible.
169 yards. DJ England Chisholm, 2 receptions, 169 yards.
And like, you don't want to take much away from Middle Tennessee because they played a great game. They were super prepared. They played hard. They executed. They did everything they had to do. But then you look at what Miami's doing, and it's just like, wow, man. Wow. One of the Miami players even admitted in his post-game interview that they like thought this was a bye week. Like they didn't take Middle Tennessee seriously whatsoever. Kind of rare to hear a player say that, even when we know it's true. To hear him admit it, must have been really
admit it is something. Yeah, that's serious. No, man, MTSU gets up to a 24-3 lead in the the first quarter ended 17-3. They score again to open up the second, and it was just there was no chance for Miami. There was never any chance for Miami, right? And that's funny, right? Because like UTSA fan is probably thinking, well, UT was 25 whenever we played them, and we got up to a slight lead, but then they ended up kicking our butts. Well, UM was 25 whenever Middle Tennessee played them. They got up to an early lead and they kicked their butts all 4 quarters. Is that a fair like draw for UTSA fan to make? Is that a fair parallel to draw?
Big difference I would point out is UT did not start the season ranked. They kind of quote unquote earned their ranking. Miami started with a pretty high rank and slid down each week because they looked so bad. Yeah. So I think it is a little bit different. I mean, Miami had no business being ranked. They were only ranked because Mario Cristobal's the coach. You know, they have all these big transfers, NIL money getting pumped in, and people really took the bait on that, right? They should not have been a ranked team. They looked so bad against Middle Tennessee. That Tyler Van Dyke quarterback they had that started the game, oh man, I don't know where they found that guy, but he looked awful. I mean, he was like just staring into triple coverage and throwing right into triple coverage. It like blew my mind. Oh my gosh. So I would say the 25th ranked UT team that UTSA faced was a heck of a lot better than the 25th ranked Miami team that Middle Tennessee faced. But, you know, UT did lose to Tech last week. So who knows?
That's true. So Middle Tennessee, man, what do they do well? Who do we need to look out for? Well, Chase Cunningham, right? I mean, I think that's got to be the number one guy on UTSA defense's list.
Yeah, offensively, you know, it's all going to flow through Cunningham. He's having a pretty great year, 70% completion percentage, 7 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, so pretty solid there. And I wouldn't really call him a dual threat, right? He's not like a running quarterback, but he can make some plays with his legs and he can extend things, right? Yeah. But I think what really makes him great are his receivers. They have a really nice top 3 trio there. Jalen Lane, like their speed guy, he's a return specialist for them. Super, super fast. He can take it to the house, no problem. You mentioned DJ England Chisholm, who had the 2 massive catches against Middle Tennessee. That guy's a beast. He's a big downfield threat. I would compare him to JT Clark as far as his physicality goes, his body frame, stuff like that. And they got this cat, Elijah Metcalf, who's pretty good as well. All 3 of those guys are some of the top receivers in Conference USA, I would say. And they have a guy, Yusuf Ali, who's pretty good as well, that rotates in. So that's a pretty good like combination of receivers. They're going to spread out wide and they're going to hit those guys a lot. Like their offense is very quick tempo, dumping the ball to the receivers as much as possible, because they never have had a run game, really. I mean, it's been many, many years since Middle Tennessee had like a real go-to primary running back. You know, they even had years where they had to rotate receivers in to play running back because they just never really had a dude back there. And that seems to be continuing this year. You really don't see much from their running game that strikes a lot of fear into your heart. I mean, they're going to get some pickups, you know, when they're running into a light tackle box, if you will. But it'd be pretty surprising if, even with the kind of struggle we've seen UTSA have defending against the run this year against Army and Texas Southern, it would still be pretty surprising if Middle Tennessee had a really big day running the ball against the Roadrunners.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it's just not really a part of their game plan, right? And I
think they wanted to be. They just, for whatever reason, they can never find the right running back.
I mean, they always seem to be.
Offensive line's not that great either.
But they always seem to be primarily air raid, right? Like that's Stockstill's style, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, sure, in a perfect world, they would have the running back that could do that, but yeah, I just don't know if that's really how they game plan a lot.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But I mean, the distribution was pretty even. I mean, they only threw the ball 25 times against Miami. Well, they probably backed up a few more times than that. Cunningham had 9 rushes, but overall, I think the distribution was probably pretty close to even. It was probably about 30 and 30 across the board then.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I wonder how much of that was, they had the 2 drives that were like 1 or 2 plays because they were like the long touchdown passes.
Didn't need to throw the ball very much.
And then they had a big lead, right? So trying to kill the clock, right? So, I wonder if you check the JMU game, if it's any different as far as distribution goes.
Good point.
But yeah, even with them having a good passing offense, though, their pass protection is kind of rough. They've already been sacked 16 times this year. And that includes playing against Colorado State, who's really, really bad, and Tennessee State, who I never hear much about them as an FCS program. So I can't imagine they have like a crazy good pass rush. So I think we'll learn a lot about UTSA's pass rush this game. Like I said earlier, they've kind of been getting pressures, but they're not really completing plays. So they can find a way to get 3-4 sacks and kind of keep Middle Tennessee in their average of sacks per game. I think that goes a long way for the Roadrunners to get a win in Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I feel like the lack of pass protection is probably a big reason why they only convert 35% of their third downs too. So that's a pretty key stat to look out for.
So we make it home a couple of times this week. Defense is able to finish some of those backfield blowups.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
But I guess to jump over to the defensive side of the ball, I'm really impressed with their defense. They looked really good to me on film. Very aggressive, very fundamentally sound. They blitz a lot and they get to the quarterback a lot, right? Main guy you look out for is Jordan Ferguson. He's in the running for Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. He might have been the preseason Defensive Player of the Year. I can't recall. But he's definitely one of the best pass rushers in this league. He's probably got a chance to play in the NFL. So he's a force, big, strong, athletic, really long, smart player, super, super smart player, really high football IQ. But there's a lot of guys around him that have been getting tackled for losses and sacks as well. So I think Ferguson draws a lot of the attention from the offense and, who you're going to chip on, who you're going to put the running back on his side, stuff like that. But it's not like he's the only guy you got to look out for on that line. Like they do have a lot of weapons. So I think that's going to be a big challenge for UTSA, especially if they don't get any of the injured offensive tackles back. I think Ferguson's one of the best players in this league. So what are they going to do to stop him or at least slow him down, right?
Is it just me or does it feel like Jordan Ferguson has been just a menacing issue for a really, really long time? This is like his 5th year. Is his 5th year senior now?
We were talking about those old games against Middle Tennessee recently, and I was kind of thinking in the back of my head, I was like, was Ferguson there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ferguson has been with Middle Tennessee since 2017. So he would have definitely been in the 2020 and 2021 contests.
Yeah, but I was even thinking maybe further than back.
Maybe even further back. It almost feels like it, but his name you've had to pay attention to as a Conference USA fan. You've had to pay attention to Jordan Ferguson's name. I mean, every single season, he's always in the running for Defensive Player of the Year and the guy's just a beast, man. He really, really is.
Yeah. Now, on the topic of the defensive line, I do have to call out that this is the first even man front that UTSA is going to see from a defense this year.
What does that mean for UTSA's offense?
So when you say an odd man front versus an even man front, what that means is the odd man front, you either have 3 down defensive linemen, like with their hand in the ground,
right,
or you have 5, right? Most commonly, you're going to see 3 down defensive linemen. That's what UTSA runs on their defense, as well as every team that UTSA has played so far this year. But an even front, then you have 4 defensive linemen down. So it changes their alignment of where those guys line up. With a 3-man front, you typically have a nose tackle right over on top of the center. And then you've got the two defensive tackles, defensive ends that are kind of on the, I guess, outside shoulder of the offensive tackles. Whereas in an even man front, then you've got two defensive tackles over the guards and then two defensive ends outside the tackles, right? So it's just like a different look. It's different angles you have to take in the blocking game. I do wonder, given the really poor showing from UTSA's defense and the really bad alignment that we saw, if UTSA was already game prepping for this even man front for Middle Tennessee last week, and that's why they look so bad against Texas Southern. I don't know. That's like a homer take, maybe overly optimistic, but I know that UTSA knew what they're going to face against Middle Tennessee early. It's a short week, playing on a Friday, so you do have to make some adjustments in your game prep. They practice on a Sunday this past week, which they never do. So I don't know, something to think about. I
wanted to talk to you about that. I'm so glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up at the end of this. Yeah. So UTSA practices Sunday night on the short week, and you got to travel on a short week. Yeah. Play the game Friday night. We already talked about how you can't go full contact in practice with as many guys injured as you have, or full contact. You can't beat the hell out of guys. And you wouldn't want to do that on a short week anyway, but like the intricacies of prep this week, of practice this week, like how does UTSA practice on a short week coming out of the gauntlet that they just came out of, going into their first conference game against a team that just beat top 25 Miami, right? Like how does a short week impact the team, physically and philosophically, right?
Well, I think from a logistics standpoint, you just move everything forward by a day. I think the biggest loss you have there is like the kind of like treatment that you get. I do know that I think UTSA did some pretty extensive treatment work after the game last Saturday, where guys like immediately went in to get a treatment on their ankles or shoulders, all that good stuff, right? So everything gets rushed a little bit. The situation that UTSA is in, I feel like they did most of their advanced prep for Middle Tennessee already, right? Going into an FCS game against Texas Southern, just a hunch. I mean, if I was Jeff Traylor, that's what I would have done, to be honest with you, right? So I think that's the main thing. They will probably leave on Thursday. They're going to imagine you stay in Nashville the night before or Murfreesboro, right? So it really just speeds things up a little bit, and you might lose a little bit of their recovery time, and you might hold some guys out from practice on a short week too, just so they can get their body right. If they don't have any like structural damage, but maybe they've got some pretty bad bruising, or they sprained something or whatever it might be, you might hold them out and let them heal up a little bit better than throw them right back on there on the practice field.
And we had some moments there in that TSU game that were a little scary. Hell, Frank Harris had to go into the tent for a few minutes there.
Yeah, the one that concerned me more was Rashad Wisdom went down. Yes. He took a really hard hit to his shoulder. He kind of flew in on a receiver, and pretty nasty impact. So I did see that he was held out for last practice, but it seems like he's gonna be fine. I think he probably will play this week. Yeah,
maybe just try to fit a little bit of extra rest time for your guys that need it, right? But this thing is going, and there's no time.
But it goes both ways too. Middle Tennessee is also in a short week, but they played Miami, right? And they probably went out and enjoyed themselves Saturday night, right after that win, right? When they got back to campus,
and they probably really gave Miami every single thing that they had in the tank, right? And so,
I think so.
It might be opportunistic for UTSA.
Yeah, and I would say that Rick Stockstill has not been pretty consistent with like stringing together quality wins. In fact, I saw a stat on the Middle Tennessee Rival site that Rick Stockstill has beaten Power 5 teams, I think 5 times in Middle Tennessee, which is crazy. Yes. And I think they've lost the next game 3 out of those 5 times.
Right. Or they'll lose 2 out of the next 3 almost every time. I think every time it was 2 out of the next 3. Right. And then the next game was a loss. Did you say 2 of those 5, 3 of those 5?
Yeah, I think they had a lot. Like they would beat a Power 5, and then the next game they would lose 3 out of 5 of those.
Wow, incredible! Yeah. So there's a big, and you got a UTSA team that is disappointed in their last showing. They're a little bit pissed off. They know they can play better, and then you got an MTSU team riding the high, a little bit hungover, celebrating, feeling good about themselves. Timing could work to UTSA's advantage.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To get back to the Middle Tennessee defense a little bit, I think we'll probably see another game of pretty light rushing output for UTSA because by design, Middle Tennessee loads the box. Like they're not afraid to put their corners and safeties on an island. We saw a lot of that against Miami that, they're just going to bank on those one-on-one matchups, right? So I think you'll see a pretty stacked box against UTSA again. Could be wrong, you have a receiver go for 220 yards last week or whatever it is, you might want to double team that guy. But that's my prediction is that UTSA will probably not have a whole lot of opportunities to rack up rushing yardage. Couple guys in the secondary I wanted to call out. So there's actually a guy that is a Gilmer player, Trey Fluellen.
Wow.
His younger brother is a big recruit. I think he's committed to TCU. So obviously him and Jeff are bound to know each other. He's one of Middle Tennessee's top safeties. I think he's like one of their top 3 or top 5 tacklers or something like that. And they have a cornerback, DeCorian Patterson, who's been great this year as well. He's a really big corner, like 6'2", 205 or something like that. So kind of like that UTSA build of bigger dudes. He's been a big standout for them. He really held his own against Miami. And he's already got 2 picks on this year. So definitely the one that'll probably match up with JT and Zakari the most, if I had to guess.
Yeah, dude. Middle Tennessee held Colorado State to negative 10 yards rushing and Miami to only 60 yards rushing. Pretty nasty.
Yeah, pretty nasty. That defense is good, man.
Defense is very good. And Traylor's always talking about how every single game is a 1-possession game for UTSA. I don't know that that's a good thing. And he always seems to like to talk about it. Every single game is 1 possession. I'm like, can it not be? How about we try to not have it? Yeah, dude. But it's certainly looking like it could be nasty like that, Be back and forth, be a grudge match.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I think they've got the output, but I like our offensive scoring output a lot. I like the way that it's all timing out for us schedule-wise. So UTSA, despite the performance against Texas Southern and despite Middle Tennessee beating Miami by 14 points, UTSA is favored was the line opened up at 3, I believe, for UTSA.
Oh, I thought it opened up at 7.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I think so.
No, now it's 4. Okay.
Yeah. So it's been moving towards Middle Tennessee quite a bit, but the opening line did favor UTSA by a touchdown on the road, which is key.
Well, and it's crazy because the Football Power Index actually has Middle Tennessee 61% chance on the matchup indicator. So
yeah, that thing kind of sucks though.
That thing sucks because it never seems to be correlated with the spread. The spread is always different from the FBI. Yeah. But I think a 4-point spread, 3-point spread is pretty accurate as to how close this game is probably going to end up being. It's going to be the very first conference game. It's going to be Friday night. It's probably going to be a little bit wacky, but it's going to go back and forth, man. Big time.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, just given the history of these two teams recently, they play each other close, right? No matter how good or bad one team is. I think Stockstill, he's probably not the guy to get Middle Tennessee to the promised land, but he is a good coach and he gets his guys ready to play. Sure. The defense is very physical, right? And I'm sure they've scouted UTSA really well because they've played them, 2 times in the past 2 years, right? So they really know what they're getting themselves into. That being said, I actually feel pretty good about UTSA in this game.
Okay.
Which I know it might sound a little strange with the opponent that's just coming off of a ranked win. But I came out of that game more shocked at how bad Miami was than impressed with Middle Tennessee.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to take away from Middle Tennessee because they did their thing, man. They played a great freaking game. But then you look at how they played against James Madison. And James Madison is a way better team than Miami.
Absolutely.
It's just facts. It's just facts.
Yeah.
But still, I don't have faith in Rick Stockstill to put together 2 big marquee wins like that. And I think UTSA shows up when it matters most. I think they're going to get some of the guys. I think Brandon Madison will be back this week. I think Traylon will be back this week. I think Dadrian Taylor will be back this week. So I think having that infusion of dudes back is going to help them a lot. And I think Frank Harris is going to cook under the Friday night lights on CBS Sports. I'm picking UTSA to win 33-24.
Ooh, baby, I love that final score.
Cover the spread.
Jared feeling good about a Friday game. Hell yeah, dude.
When's the last time UTSA played on Friday?
Golly, man, it's been years.
Whenever
we played Arizona State, was it Friday night?
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Frank Wilson's game against Arizona State when Dalton.
It's going to happen a lot more in the American than it did in Conference USA.
How do we feel about that?
Yeah, it's fine. I'd rather play on a Friday night than a Thursday night for sure.
Yeah. Oh God, to hell with a Thursday. No way. I have no interest in that. Yeah.
I haven't finished watching the media roundtable yet, but I'd be shocked if Jeff Traylor's now waiting for someone to ask him how he feels about playing on Friday nights.
Oh, he said Saturday is going to feel like a bye week for us. He's like, man, we just got to get back on that plane. We just got to get on that plane. It don't matter if it's 2 to 3, 68, 65.
I just meant like, the whole Texas high school football thing. Like I feel like to him it's like sacrilegious to play a college game on a Friday night.
Oh, dude, you think Jeff's got the whole altar set up in the room and he's gonna like go and do his whole ritual, right? We're getting ready to get on that plane. He's probably got like the whole Friday night ritual he used to do in Gilmore. Maybe he brings that back, dude. I like
Maybe
that.
So. Ooh, see that's a good take right there. What is Jeff Traylor's winning percentage as a head coach on Friday nights?
Let's go get that one, baby. Let's go get that one. I like the 33-24 score prediction. I was going to ask you, when was the last time Jared had a more favorable score total for UTSA than I did? I think it may have been further back than UTSA's last Friday night game. But I think this is a new one. So I'm going to go UTSA 37, Middle Tennessee 31. And I think we come out of there with the cover. And we get the cover and we come back to a freaking rowdy Alamo Dome for WKU.
Man, that game's gonna be wild, dude. I can't wait.
Nuts. Which Alamo Dome wasn't totally packed against Texas Southern, but man, student section showed out. They were totally
it was loud on TV.
Full. It sounded great on TV. It was loud in there.
I was a little surprised when they announced the attendance number because just watching the broadcast on Stadium, it seemed like it was at least like 28K. If I would have
I thought it was closer to, it looked closer to 30 on the screen. It definitely looked closer to 30, but that student section was totally packed. It was totally packed. So that's fantastic that it's a thing to do. And they're not letting a sorry opponent or a 3-score loss differential deter them from going to the game. So very, very excited to see that. You got to get a win over Middle Tennessee though if you want casual to get excited to go to the Alamo Dome. I think the only other thing. Oh no, I don't think I've got anything else on Middle Tennessee.
Only thing I'll say is they're wearing their blackout uniforms. Middle Tennessee is not UTSA.
That's right.
And those uniforms are nice. I hope they wear the chrome helmets as well. So I'm looking forward to that uniform matchup.
That blue bouncing off the black looks really, really nice.
Man, UTSA looked great in the all orange last week.
Oh, baby, with the orange pants.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's nice.
Did you want an orange helmet watching that game? Like, were you kind of like, would it be too much at that point?
I think it's too much.
I don't know, dude. I was watching the orange pants and the orange shirt is like, man, that is fire. I don't think I would not hate an orange helmet on top of it, dude.
I'm willing to see what it looks like. Yeah.
Willing to see what it looks like. It's got to be the right decal and the right layout, right, of helmet. But dude, I love the jersey and pants combo because last time we oranged out, which I don't think there was an orange out last season. The last time we oranged out, we had white pants with the orange stripe that went along with the orange jersey. Right. And dude, that orange on orange looks so good, man. It looks so good. I was a huge fan of it. I was a huge fan. Even Traylon, who didn't play, he had like orange shorts with the orange jersey. He was still orange on orange.
That's
I was
leadership,
like, yes,
baby.
let's go. Let's go. Nice. Give that to me. Yeah. One last thing I will say, we used to have the argument over the years, Sturm or Souza. It's undisputed now who is the GOAT. And I think it's been undisputed, right? And Jared and I would say it's been undisputed since last season. But now it is undisputed. Frank Harris, GOAT quarterback, all-time touchdown leader. I made it a point to go find out how many games it took him to beat Dalton's record in comparison to Dalton's. He did it in one less game than Dalton.
Oh, wow. That's good stuff.
34-35. So yes. Not that I was still trying to bang that Dalton drum and pull out and pull out something in Dalton's favor. I may have been, but it's undisputed, baby. Ranked goat. So that was awesome. Just awesome. Yeah.
Yep. Well, we'll get out of here. Thank you guys for sticking with us and listening all the way through this one. I know it ran a little bit long, but if you didn't get enough and you want more, we got a bonus episode coming your way this week. We're recording, I think, Tuesday night. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah, Tuesday night with Sam Dalton, who's Middle Tennessee's staff writer for football. Great guy. He was on the Underdog Dynasty podcast recently and killed it. I had so much fun listening to him on that. So looking forward to getting him on the pod and talking a little bit more about the Blue Raiders. I'm really curious to ask him his perspective on what changed from the James Madison game to the Miami one. So I'm super fascinated to see what the answer there is going to be.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So if you wanted to learn a little bit more about the Blue Raiders and, check out some more of our content, be sure to subscribe on Patreon. You can go to alamodomeaudible.com to get all the details. Just click on the subscribe button. Also, Adrian, I didn't even tell you this, but we've updated our website to be a little bit more lenient. So if your credit card changes, we'll give you a grace period before we lock you out. And you gotta re-up, baby.
Oh, very nice.
That's a little PSA for you.
There you go.
Yeah, because I was having a lot of people that were getting locked out. Like, the second month they subscribed, I was like, all right, we'll juice it in the pot.
A little grace period. That's nice. Okay. That's nice.
All right, guys. Well, hope you all enjoy your week and get ready for some Friday Night Football with the Roadrunners at 6:30 on CBS Sports. And we'll see you guys back next week, as always, to preview what is going to be a super, super fun game against Western Kentucky back in the Alamo Dome.
Hell yeah. Birds up.